So I started recording these 6 TV programs just to try and put out this information of this crime that the police were not investigating. My TV series, where I actually did a program about this fire and the fact that we thought it was probably malicious, that went out on the 27th of the 1st, and I sent copies of that to a chief inspector in Northumbria Police, and I also sent it to a detective inspector. I deliberately sent it to 2 different officers, so there's less chance of it being covered up. And I sent them a covering letter with that. Now, at the same time, these 2 letters crossed in the post. Alan received a letter from the Victim Care Bureau, or Alan and Baram received this letter, saying that their inquiries were complete and the case was dropped. And they hadn't even been in the house to look at the floor damage. Okay? So, I thought, well, they would respond to me because I've written my own letter with a DVD showing them all the damage. That's the letter there. Now, neither myself nor Alan or Baram heard anything for a month after I'd written to them with my DVD, telling them that it was on television. So I started chasing the chief inspector that I'd sent the evidence to, and he was avoiding me on the phone, definitely. I got the old, I'll just go and see if he's, I would ring him up, ask for him by name. This is a chief inspector, Bruce Story he's called, and you get the old, I'll just go and see if he's available. Then the woman comes back to the phone. Who's speaking, please? It's Richard Hall. One moment, please. Oh, sorry, he's not here. So, and this is just when I was trying to get hold of this a chief inspector and a detective inspector, they were definitely avoiding speaking to me. And I'll just show you a little bit of that phone call.
Yeah. I believe you spoke to me a little while ago.
Yeah, I'm trying to get in touch with Chief Inspector Bruce Story now.
Right, I've spoken to, well, I've tried to get in contact with both Mr. Story and Mr. Coverwell and explain that you're trying to contact them. They're both out of the office at the moment.
Yeah, right. Okay, now eventually I kept chasing them, and a detective inspector who covers their area where they live, he did ring me back, and he had been given my letter and DVD, and this is that telephone call.
Hello, Richard Hall speaking.
Mr. Hall, my name's Dave Culver. I'm a detective inspector with Northumbria Police.
Hello there.
I understand you're trying to get in touch with me.
Yes, I believe Terry McNamara passed some evidence on to you.
It was Bruce Story.
Right.
A number of weeks ago passed on your letter. I apologise for not acknowledging it. I've since passed it to a DS. I have the letter and the DVD, both Paul Makepeace and Nick Walker viewed the DVD. I haven't had the chance to yet in front of me here.
Right.
They viewed it. I understand from Paul that the DVD clearly throws up a number of witnesses that we need to speak to. And that I've allocated that out. It was yesterday or the day before to Nick Walker.
Okay.
So I've asked him to acknowledge your letter, so you should be getting that very soon.
Okay.
And basically, we're looking at the content of your report in conjunction with what we looked at the time in conjunction with the fire service.
Right. Okay. Right. I mean, they've. It's my understanding that no officer's actually been in the house to look at the crime scene.
Well, there was a bit of a breakdown in communication between, I think, September and maybe November sort of time. Which hopefully we can get that wheels put back on there and pick up on it again. But I assure you that Nick Walker will be dealing with it. Hopefully, he'll get some sort of response as soon as
Right. Are you familiar with how incendiary devices operate at all? Because you need someone who is, if they're going to investigate that crime scene.
Well, you bear in mind what information we've already got from the fire service, who are familiar with incendiary devices, and there's no mention of incendiary devices on their report. So we'll have a look at that, and we'll speak to the fire brigade again.
I mean, if you look at the video, it's blatantly obvious that it's not a natural fire. It's a bomb of some kind.
Right.
It's an incendiary device.
I really don't know what else, but I know the fire brigade report certainly doesn't say that, and they would certainly, I would be very surprised if they didn't pick up on something like that. I would be amazed in fact.
I advise you watch the video.
Right, I will do. I promise that. I will be doing that. I know that I think Nick Walker has as well. So the video will be watched by me.
So just to reiterate, the fact that when the fire brigade put the fire out, there was debris over those floorboards, and they have not been back to see that. So the fire report wouldn't have those images in it. So that phone call was on the 29th of February this year. And as a result of that, me putting pressure on them, they sent 2 detectives on the 6th of March to interview Allen and Baram. They then heard nothing for 3 weeks after that. So what happened then was, I was actually at Allen and Baram's house, and we phoned them to say, what's going on? You've had 3 weeks, you haven't even, we haven't heard anything from you. You've interviewed us, but have you arrested this lodger? What's going on? So the 2 detectives came to the house, and I was there. There was Detective Sergeant Nick Walker and Detective Constable Harry Tuttle. Allen was stood there. Baram was sat in this seat, the guy who was in the coma for 10, 11 days. I was sat in a chair. And the 2 of them stood in the living room, and they didn't want to sit down, and they were explaining what's happened. Now, this is an edited version of this conversation, because we recorded this conversation, okay? The quality's not great, but you can pick it out, and I've put subtitles on so you can read it. They were here for 40 minutes. I've got a 40-minute conversation on tape. I've edited it down to about 6 minutes.
I sense a slight change in your tone towards us, as though you're not happy with something.
Well, 3 weeks have gone by, 3 weeks, and I haven't heard anything at all, basically. And what about the forensics?
Right. When we came down, we mentioned to you before, the time that's passed since the actual incident to now, there is no forensics, because we could not account for continuity. So if it wasn't at the time, that's an opportunity that is lost.
Well, yeah, but it couldn't have been done at the time. It couldn't be done at the time. It couldn't have possibly been done at the time, any of them, because there was about 3 foot of debris.
The fire service make an initial assessment, because they are the experts. I'm not an expert in fire. They are the expert in fire investigation, whether they believe that something is suspicious or maybe a suspected malicious ignition. And then they would make the decision as to whether or not the police would need to investigate that. And they supply us with...
They didn't investigate. They didn't even come in the house.
If you have an issue with the police and wish to make a complaint against the police regards the initial investigation, you can do that in person to a police inspector, and that will be investigated.
They said quite specifically that it's the prerogative of the police if our police is suspected. All we do is put fares out and save lives.
Yes.
That's exactly what he said. He said, don't smoke, we've got no answer for that. There's no answer to it. It's not the issue.
But I am investigating it. Yeah. As a result of the programme Mr. Hall put out, the concerns raised in that the police were investigating, the concerns that you raised, and I believe you've also written to your local MP.
So the point is that we can do forensics to test for was there an explosion. That's all we need to know, was explosion. That's all we need to know. We can do that.
If you want to have some independent work done,
we will.
You can do that. It's your prerogative.
I would have thought you'd surely need an explosives expert on it, someone who knows about incendiary devices here and examine that scene.
Right. The problem being is there's a period of time that's gone since the actual fire itself. So you have a problem of continuity over that period. The other part is that the fire service would indicate if they believed if the ignition was malicious. I got a statement of someone saying you had candles in your room, and a fire officer saying you had candles in your room.
There was no candles in the room. At least certainly not burning.
But I had 2 people saying there were candles in your room.
There's no candles burning.
Who went in it?
Nobody could
Were there candles in your room?
There was no candles in the room.
Say that?
But I have McNeil and the fire officer saying there were candles.
How would McNeil though?
Because he's been in your room.
Exactly. That's not supposed to be in my room. I said
Nobody
that on
goes in each
video.
other's room there.
We're not supposed to be. She's admitted he's been in your room.
I promise you this.
If it was thermite or something like that, a thermite flare for example, there'll be traces of thermite in that wood now.
They will.
They will still be there. You're telling me that if you investigate a murder, someone, the body's found 3 years later,
We are not investigating a murder because no one has been murdered.
attempted murder.
That's what you purport it to be.
Yes.
But from the evidence we've been given at the moment, that is not suggested.
How do you account for part of the actual rafter being blown away? You've seen the rafter, there's a huge...
Right,
there's no way an actual fire
if you
could cause
are
that.
saying that you believe an incendiary device caused a fire in your room, you're perfectly entitled, if you do not agree with what I say, to get someone independent, expert, to look at it.
There's a guy, a bomb disposal expert, has watched my film, and he said he thought it was done by...
If he's going to put pen to paper, if you wish to get him to put pen to paper, by all means do so.
Sure, I would have thought you'd want your own independent explosives expert just to have a look at that side of the evidence.
The evidence, from what I can see, and this is my opinion because I'm not an expert, is it's not an incendiary device. The opinion of the fire officers that I've spoken to, who are experts in their field, say it is not an incendiary device.
So how can it blow away part of the actual rafter, that piece of wood, with an egg-shaped hole?
Well, you tell me why it did. What's the difference?
Well,
what's the difference between an incendiary device causing that and a candle? You tell me.
Absolutely.
Because it would take days for the candle. A candle couldn't do that.
The actual piece of wood would not have a huge chunk with the two.
I worked in insurance company.
What you're saying
That's not how a fire develops.
What you're saying to me.
Okay, all right. What I'm saying is that the evidence points strongly to the fact that there was.
Why does it?
Because the damage is localised in that one location, and it was localised at 4 points on the walls.
Right. So what's to say it wasn't an electrical fault that's caused that then?
Because all the electrics were working.
They were working after.
All the electrics, the lights all worked after the fire.
Lights on, all the electrics were working.
You're not an expert, and neither am I.
The fire brigade came here, and they didn't even come in the house. They spoke to me in the air.
The fire brigade?
The fire brigade, two of them. They came in and they said, we've got somewhere else to go. And they were like, they didn't even come in the house.
But they've obviously attended on the evening and put the fire out in the room, haven't they?
That's different.
Well, that's a different kettle of fish.
If you present evidence...
These guys have had 2 previous attempts on their lives, so you wouldn't look at that.
In the context of where we are at this moment in time, I have been asked by these gentlemen to investigate the fire at this premises.
The thing is, to be honest, it sounds to me like you're trying to find an excuse for this part. Honestly, that's what it sounds like to me.
First of all, I'm not your pal. I'm a police officer.
Okay.
Secondly, I'm impartial. I'm not trying to find an excuse for anything. But if you believe there's a big conspiracy, you could also say I'm a member of the MI5, and this is all a big conspiracy to whitewash this.
I would have thought, regardless of the length of time that's passed since the event, forensically, thermite traces would still be there.
Yes, but the police will not, the amount of money it would cost to do that, which ultimately would take you nowhere, we wouldn't do that. At the moment, we do not have evidence that a crime has been committed.
Matt Neal has admitted in front of 3 witnesses it was a Wilson device put in the maid bed. Number 2, he's admitted that it's been in my bedroom to you, right? Number 3, he was the only one with a full set of keys who can get past them dogs. What do you want him to do? Come and give you a confession and fingerprints and print, send it in his own blood before you bloody arrest him.
Now, the day after that conversation, they rang Alan and Baram up and said, we're going to send a forensics team round. Okay, and the forensics team came round on the 2nd of April, and I was at the house when the 2 forensics guys, so the 2 initial detectives came round with 2 new guys, forensics. I was in the room next door. I didn't go in and see them take the floorboards, but they took 4 of the floorboards that were above where the damage was, and they bagged them. They took them away. And Alan tells me that the main forensics guy was shaking his head as if to say, yes, there's something suspicious here. They wouldn't have took the evidence away if they didn't think that. And they told Alan and Baram they were going to forensically test the floorboards with traces of explosives. Now, they then phoned up and they said, well, it's going to take 6 weeks. Now, I've checked this with a serving police officer, and apparently that is the length of time it takes. There's a waiting list at the lab. It's typically a 6-week turnaround time to have something like tests done. So 12 weeks went by and they had heard nothing, okay? So Alan, or I think it was Baram, he rang them up to try and get a response. Eventually they rang back and they were told they weren't going to test the floorboards because it would be too expensive. So, and I've also checked how much this kind of test would cost. You're talking about £100 per hour for the lab time. So it's going to cost under £1,000 easily for them to do those tests. And this is an attempted murder, and they're saying it's too expensive. I've discussed this with other police officers, and they cannot believe they're saying it's too expensive. So they said to Alan, you could come round and collect the floorboards. The police have said they're not going to test the floorboards. The police have said that Alan can collect the floorboards, which they took away for forensic examination, and are now saying, oh, it's too expensive. So,
Yeah, let's see what they say. Could I have your name and number, please?
Right, and what's that for?
Well, I'm going to write a letter after this, and I'd like to be your senior officer in this station.
Right, it's Lee McManus.
Lee McManus.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing personal.
You're going to trouble to make 6 with it.
Excuse me, can I put your video in?
Just handing over of this evidence.
Right, well, he hasn't asked me to video it, so can I ask you to delete that?
I'll turn it off, but I'll not delete it.
No, I need...
Okay.
Well, these were not sawn up like this before.
So that
They were in flags along the road.
they were in long planks.
Yeah.
Okay, so are they in different bags then, Alan?
Yes.
Okay, so they've actually been sawn in half. Right, we've got them back, and they've actually been sawn in 2 or 3. These boards were what, 3-4 feet in length.
Oh, 4, 5 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I've rang various forensics companies, and I spoke to one guy, and he said, oh, they're nylon evidence bags, and they're specifically for putting fire evidence in, because they don't let materials seep through them, kind of thing. And he said what they normally do, he said they come in standard sizes, which is why they cut the wood up. And we can see that the wood was indeed cut. It looks like perhaps by a circular saw. Now, I don't think most police stations have got a circular saw in it. So I think they've probably been sent somewhere where they've been cut up. And he said what they do is, when they do the forensic test, he says they double the bag over at the top, and they tie string around it really tight, and that creates an airtight seal. And that's what the bags, you've still got the bags, so they had this airtight seal. And he said then what they do is they cut a very small hole in the bottom corner, and they put a probe in to test for the explosives. And I checked one of the bags, and it had a little hole in the bottom corner. So we suspect they've tested these floorboards. We don't know that. We haven't got the ability to... We need a forensics team to check to see if a forensics team's been in. I mean, it's just getting ridiculous. So we are seeking to have the tests done on the rafter that's remaining and the other evidence that's still there. So in summary, somebody in Northumbria Police has or is perverting the course of justice and should be arrested. It's as simple as that. The evidence I've presented here makes that blatantly obvious. And really, that's the end of the talk. That's where we are with it. And I'd like to throw it open to anyone who has got any ideas of what the bloody hell we do here. Because, you see, we don't know who is actually doing the obfuscation. We suspect someone in Northumbria Police is taking their orders from MI5.